All right, guys, I just wanted to make a little video to explain kind of this worksheet. I'm going to make it as brief as possible, so if I'm going a little bit fast, just pause and then answer on your sheet or maybe rewind a little bit. I would recommend maybe having this recording on your phone so you can actually listen to it, and then having your worksheet like this pulled up on your iPad or your computer. All right, so the first thing it asks for me to do is to visit this website, so I'm going to go ahead and open that. And this website, this picture is the model that we're going to be looking at as we answer these questions. So this kind of looks like the cladograms that we've been working on. We can kind of see the relationships between organisms, and these little teeny tiny names up here, those are the names of different organisms. And it's showing how they're all related. Now, I do want to point out this is not all of the organisms that are living on this earth. Obviously, this is just a super, super small percentage of all the living organisms here. Okay, so here we go. What does the green range represent? So I'm going to go over to this model and find the green section. I'm going to go ahead and also just minimize these controls so they're not in my way. So I look at the green section, and then I find my key, which is right here. And I notice that the green is this word archaea. I don't know what that means, but it didn't ask me what it means, so I'm just going to answer and move on. Then it asked me what the red and the blue ranges represent, so I'm going to go ahead and do both of those at the same time. So I'll go back. The red range right here, that's this little guy. I go down to my key, and I find that it's eukaryota, whatever that means. And then this big old blue section, again, when I go to my key, it says it's bacteria. That's a word I recognize. So eukaryota is the red, and then bacteria is the blue. It's kind of a weird space there. All right, so now it asks me what archaea is. So I'm going back to these words that we looked at before. So archaea, there's an article right here that can kind of explain it to me, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell you to save some time. They are microscopic organisms, smaller than you can see with your naked eye. That's what that means. So they are living, who live in extreme environments. For example, they like to live in really, really hot temperatures, like around thermal vents under the ocean, or near volcanoes. They're okay with those crazy temperatures. So they're kind of similar to bacteria in that they are very small organisms. However, scientists decided that their DNA was different enough to put them in their own little group. So if I saw a little archaea, I would not say that guy is a bacteria, because those are two different things. All right, then it asks me what are some examples of eukaryota, and a hint says you'll usually see the word eukaryote with an E instead of eukaryota with an A. So if I see eukaryote with an E, I need to know it's talking about the same thing. Again, here's a little page for me to figure it out. And it says that animals, plants, animal, and fungi are all eukaryotes. So anything that we typically think of as a living organism is probably going to be a eukaryote. So some examples would be plants, animals, fungi, I can't spell, algae. Again, I can't spell, I'm sorry. Then I'm going to think of some actual specific examples. So I'm going to go over to my model. I'm going to exit out of that guy because we don't need him anymore. So this red zone was the eukaryota, and I noticed that looks like a chicken. That looks like a fish. It's another fish. Fruit fly, mosquito, a worm. Let's go over, here's a flower. This is rice. If I clicked on this Google search, I would find that's rice. Over here, I've got a chimpanzee, a human, a mouse. So those are some specific examples from the model. So I'd say a mouse, rice, a chimpanzee. I forgot the M. Okay, thank you. Flowers, humans, etc., etc., etc. I can also think of some examples that are not on that model. For example, puppies, hamsters, Komodo dragons. So these are all examples of eukaryota. These first ones were general examples. these ones were examples that we found in our model that we're looking at today, and then these are just ones that I thought of on my own. Okay, so based on the information from this model, make my red so you can see my answer, are most living organisms on this planet bacteria, plants, animals, or something else? So we just learned that plants and animals are in the same kind of zone in our model. So let's go back and look. It looks like a majority of this circle is not green or red, so it's not archaea or eukaryota, but it's bacteria. So according to this model, most living organisms on this planet are bacteria. Wow, again, I can't spell, I'm sorry. Because most of the organisms listed in the model are colored blue, which tells me they are bacteria. Again, if I'm going too quickly, just go ahead and pause it. I want to make this video as short as possible. So then it's going to ask me to zoom in on some of the species names in the bacteria section. It's going to ask me, do I recognize any of these names? And then what type of interaction do these organisms have with humans? So I'm just going to go ahead and keep both of those in mind as I go back to my model so I don't have to flip back and forth that often. So I want to zoom in on some of these. Let me see if I can zoom in. There we go. Some of these, bacteria names. I'm going to see if I recognize any of these. Oh, I recognize the word salmonella. That's something you can get if you eat undercooked chicken. Let's keep scrolling. Oh, I recognize the word influenzae. That sounds like influenza or the flu. Not exactly the same word, but it's very, very, very close. Cholera is another disease. I think that was from drinking unclean water. It's more of an older disease. I'm not sure if people get it quite as much anymore. I see pertussis. That's something that we get vaccinated for. That's a disease we get vaccinated for as children. I think it's more has to do with your lungs and with coughing. Is kind of what that's associated with. And bordetella, if anybody has a dog that they've taken their dog to be boarded before or to the vet to stay overnight, they have to have a bordetella vaccine. So again, that's against a bordetella disease. Meningitis. So again, this word looks a lot like meningitis. Is a disease that can affect your brain function. That's a pretty serious one. We'll keep scrolling. Oops. Not recognizing any of these. Not recognizing any of these. It's kind of hard to read. Excuse me. Tuberculosis, another lung disease. Again, not quite as common as it used to be. I guess 20 or 30 years ago, 40, 50. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. But so are we seeing diphtheria? We're seeing kind of a pattern of the words that I'm recognizing. All right, chlamydia and pneumonia. That word's pneumoniae, but still very close to pneumonia. Both are two different diseases that we typically think of. One it affects the, lungs, and the other typically thought of as an STD. All right, so I think we've kind of got our trend. So to me, it sounds like the names that I recognize in the bacteria section are diseases. So yes, I recognize these names. They sound like names of diseases I've heard of. And then what type of interaction do they have with humans? Well, clearly a parasitic, because they make us sick. However, not all bacteria is bad. We may have talked about, really? Okay, fine. We may have talked about how there are bacteria in your stomach that helps you digest your food, which is very good. However, I just don't recognize the names of those. So I'm not telling you that all bacteria is bad for you and causes illness in either humans or other organisms. I'm just saying the ones of the names that we recognize are the bacteria. So there are good bacteria, definitely. I just don't recognize the names of the good bacteria. All right, now it wants me to zoom in on the eukaryota section. How many organisms are listed there? So I'm going to come over here. And the red is the eukaryota. And I'm not going to count this for you. Y'all can count. So between here and here, so from the pan troglodytes all the way through Giardia, I can't pronounce that. I'll have just pause here for a second and count those. Okay, so you'll type that number here. All right, and of those organisms, how many are plants? So let's go through. The plants are sort of in this section. These guys over here are microorganisms. These guys over here are animals. These are insects, so plants are kind of over here. That's not a plant. I don't know what that is. That's not a plant. That's rice, so that's a plant. That's 1. Looks like a flower. That's 2. I don't know what that guy is. I don't know what that guy is. All right, and we're out of the plant section. So it looks like out of the small amount of organisms listed in this model, only 2 are plants. And then it asked me how many are animals. Okay, so again, I told you that the animals are sort of in this section. So here we go. Pan troglodytes, that's a chimpanzee, that's 1. Humans, 2. Mouse, 3. Rat, 4. Chicken, 5. Fish, 6. Another fish, 7. Fruit fly, 8. Mosquito, 9. Worm, 10. Smaller worm, 11. And this guy is getting into our microorganisms again. So it looks like 11 are animals. All right, so that would mean the rest of them are going to be microscopic organisms. So you're going to want to take the number of total eukaryota found in number 8 minus the number of plants, which is 2, minus the number of animals, and that will give you your answer. So this number you found here, minus 13, and that will give you your number of microorganisms. Again, pause this to figure that out. All right, now it wants me to locate the humans and ask me what the scientific name of humans is, and I'm going to go ahead and look at the next one too, so save time as I flip back and forth. What species is most closely related to humans according to this model? So humans is right here. The scientific name is Homo sapiens. All right, so now I'm going to follow this little dotted line back to find our closest ancestor, the most closely related species. So it looks like humans share a little branch with this organism over here, which is the chimpanzee. The scientific name is Pan troglodytes, but this is a chimpanzee, and if you want to check, you can do a quick Google search, and boom. Don't need that anymore. All right, so let's go answer those questions. So the scientific name, and scientific names are written in italics, so Homo sapiens. And what species was most related to humans according to this model? And the answer was, the scientific name was Pan troglodytes, which is a chimpanzee. Again, if I'm going quickly, you can just pause and rewind that last section. So do humans have any similarities with their closest ancestors? I'm going to let you answer this on your own. The answer is yes. And I want you to think of some reasons why. So please tell me why and what similarities are. For example, I would argue that chimpanzees are more similar to humans than a fish would be, or than a tree would be. So how are they similar? Think about how they move around, how they reproduce, and what their babies look like when they're born, if it's any different than other organisms, things like that. All right, so G, are humans more related to C. elegans, which is a worm, or Gallus gallus, which is a chicken? And then how do I know that? So let's go back to my model. So here's Homo sapiens right here. And here's Gallus gallus. So let's see if I can find their closest common ancestor. So here's the human trail, and I'm going to bring it back and back. And this would be the most common ancestor with Gallus gallus, with the chicken. So that's not too far back, according to this model. Clearly we don't look very much like chickens, so we're not super related to them. So that's not too many branches back. It's like, what, 3? 1, 2, 3 branches. And that's the branch that also connects with the chicken. On the other hand, the worm is all the way over here. So the worm branch, okay, please go away picture, there we go. The worm branch comes all the way down here. You see this little line behind the blue box. So it is related to humans that way, but it's a lot more branches away. I have to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. There's where we're with the chicken. Or sorry, this is where we're with the chicken. 4, 5, 6 branches away to be related to the worm. So I'm going to come back over here. More related to G. gallus, the chicken, and the worm, which is C. elegans, because we are only 3 branches away from the chicken, and what was it, like 5 or 6? I forgot, I'm sorry. 6 maybe, again I forgot, go back and watch. Branches away from the worm, according to this model. Again, if we had zoomed in on just like just this section of the I guess of like the kind of cladogram or whatever, the tree of life here, there's a bunch of different ape and monkey organisms that we are closer related to, but according to this model, we were that many branches away. So this does not include all the organisms on the earth again. So how are humans similar to the worm? This is the worm. What do they have in common? Here's an interesting little article here that's titled, "A worm is more like a human than previously thought." So again, I'm going to let you answer this on your own, but think about it. I would argue that humans are more closely similar to a worm than a tree. Why would I say that? What do worms do that trees don't? What do worms do that are similar to humans? For example, how do they get around? Do trees get around? No, they don't. Worms do. All right, so I'll let you answer that on your own. And the next question, again, I'm going to let you answer on your own, but think about it. How are humans similar to G. gallus? This is the chicken. What do they have in common? For starters, chickens have 2 legs, so they move around on 2 legs. They have 2 upper limbs, just like humans have 2 upper limbs. Theirs are wings and ours are arms, but still. They have more similar digestive tracts. They have sexual reproduction. Not all worms have sexual reproduction. So again, I'll let you answer that on your own. All right, number 9. Are humans related to bacteria? If yes, are they closely related, and how do you know that? So I'm going to zoom out. Whoa, sorry. I'm going to zoom out. Oh, sorry, it asked bacteria. I think I said worms. Are they closely related to bacteria? So again, I'm going to trace this all the way down. Homo sapiens to their common ancestor, to this common ancestor, to this common ancestor, to this one, and this one. And we're just going back and back and back in the timeline. This one, this one, this one, to this one. Ooh, that one's really long. All the way down here. So I got all the way down here. And then it branches to this common ancestor, and this common ancestor goes to bacteria. So yes, they are related, but the common ancestor is as far back as you can go. So yes, but they are not closely related at all. Their closest common ancestor is probably millions or billions of years ago. You can't get any more distantly related than bacteria. All right, in the bottom corner, there's a box labeled data sets. It says to turn on the genome size, so I'll do that in a minute. And then it asks me what a genome is. So I'm going to follow this link. And it says a genome is an organism's complete set of genetic instructions. Each genome contains all the information needed to build that organism and to allow it to grow and develop. So it's all of its DNA, all of its genes, all of its traits to make one organism. I don't need that anymore. A genome is the complete set of instructions or information. I'm going to add genetic. Oh, yeah. That makes up an organism. A genome is all of an organism's DNA, genes, and traits. All right, so it wants me to turn on the genome size. And it's going to ask me to zoom out. And which one has the largest genome and what's the common name of this organism? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to turn on my genome size like it asked. I'm going to move this out of the way. Yeah, I'm going to move these out of the way just so we can't see them as well. I'm going to zoom out. Ooh, goodness. Okay, and do you see how these blue lines showed up? Those blue lines were not there before. There we go. It's pretty clear which one is the largest. It's this guy over here. And if I trace that back to the name, that's the rice. I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to go answer. Rice has the largest genome size in this model. So I'm not telling you that rice has the biggest genome size of all of the organisms on this planet, just the ones that are in this model here. There are lots of organisms that are not listed in this model, and it's possible that some of them have a larger genome size. So they have more genetic information. All right, this one's a little tricky. Why might this organism have the largest genome size of the organisms listed here? And it says, hint, could humans have anything to do with it? I just want to think through. So what is rice used for? Rice is one of the biggest crops on the face of this earth that humans grow to eat and to use for other products. So because humans use it so much and because it's such a big part of the economy, humans want to make sure that the rice is exactly as they want it to be. They want to have the biggest rice, the strongest rice, the ones that are not going to get sick. So humans may have messed with the genome. They may have added traits, taken away traits by switching around the DNA. So it's possible, and again, I don't know this. I'm just kind of trying to make an argument and think outside the box here. But it's possible that humans could have adjusted rice's DNA and made it the largest one. So I'm going to type that out. Because rice is such an important crop to humans, humans may have altered its DNA, its genes, its traits to make it stronger, better, faster, disease resistant, etc., and so forth and so forth. It doesn't need to be faster necessarily. That's just part of a song. I was being stupid. Okay. Number 13, which organism appears to have the smallest genome? And I'm going to show you one thing. It's going to say, why might this organism have the smallest of the ones listed here? So the smallest ones look like they're over here. If you'll notice, as you put your mouse across these, it shows you the number of how much DNA they have. So scroll into those and zoom in and see if you can find the smallest one. I think it's one of these over here. But I'll let you do that on your own. I'll go ahead and pause for you to do that. Okay. However, if we look at it, it's in the bacteria section, isn't it? It's definitely in the bacteria section. It's got to be one of these, maybe this guy. So that's either bacteria archaea. Well, what do we know about bacteria archaea? So I'll let you type your answer here. And then it may have the smallest because they are just single cells. These organisms, bacteria and archaea, are mostly single cells. Whereas you and I have lots of different traits and parts of our bodies that make us up, where we can be different heights, we can be different colors, we can have different faces, like different shapes of our faces, all that kind of stuff. So that's a lot of information to code for in our DNA, and these organisms only are one single cell. All right, then it wants me to look at the size of the human genome. We're almost done. Does this size surprise you? Why or why not? So humans are here, Homo sapiens. So it's definitely not the largest, but it's not the smallest either. It's sort of in the middle. I'm sure that you've noticed right now that the eukaryotes, the plants, animals, fungi, insects, all that stuff, they typically have the largest set in this model, according to this model. Again, because they're more complex organisms. They have legs or arms or branches or flowers or brains. So I'm going to let you answer this on your own. So here's where humans is. Not the largest, not the smallest. Does its size surprise you? You get to answer that on your own. And why or why not? Does it make sense that it's has a large genome size? Does it make sense that it's not the largest? Would you expect it to be the largest? I did. So I'll let you answer that on your own. And these last ones are on your own as well. So what did you find interesting about this model of the tree of life? Is there anything that you learned or you found strange? Again, pause if you need some time. What questions does this model answer? I'm going to let you answer that on your own. But think too, what pieces of information does this give us? This model gives us the size of their genome, how much genetic information it has. This model tells us how all these organisms are related and if they're closely related or they're not closely related. It tells us the scientific names of some organisms. So thinking about the pieces of information that it gives us, what does this model answer? Next, again on your own, what questions does this model raise? What does it make you curious about? One possible answer is, this doesn't give all of the organisms, all of the plants and animals and protists and fungi and all that stuff. So does this make you curious about other organisms that are not listed? Does this make you curious about how much DNA a puppy has? That's a possible answer. And then lastly, again on your own, does this model present evidence that helps prove evolution? Does it help say, yes, evolution is a theory that can be proven? Or does this help disprove evolution? Why do you think this is? So again, this is not an answer, but just think about the stuff that we have been talking about in class. So we've been talking about similar structures between organisms. We've talked about DNA sequences being similar. We've talked about common ancestors. We have talked about, let's see, I guess morphology kind of goes into similar structures. We've talked about embryology, but this model didn't necessarily show us that. So think about the different things that we've been talking about. We've been talking about cladograms, or the tree, kind of a tree that represents how traits are related and how similar organisms are. So think about all those things we've been talking about, and does this help prove that theory? Or does it help disprove that theory? I think this right here, looking at how everything is actually related or can be traced to a common ancestor, might give you your answer there. All right, guys, go ahead and turn this in when you are finished. All right.